Welcome to week 4. A lot happened this week. I left Haines Junction after having a delicious cinnamon bun at the gas station. Not too far down the road, I stopped at Cluane Lake, which is sort of a national park in Canada, and then the Slim River Delta, which is really interesting. It's almost desert-like. My next stop was the Soldier Summit, which is where they had a big ceremony inaugurating the opening of the Alcan. There was a Canadian and an American flag there. They had the ribbon cutting ceremony, and evidently it was very cold that day, and people obviously all bundled up. So there was a segregated army during the building of the Alcan. The black soldiers started from the north and went south. White soldiers went south from south to north, and there was a big difference in how they were treated and their housing and so forth. From there I moved on, and I stopped at this gas station that had a bunch of these really tame prairie dogs all over the place. And of course, Missy was super interested in all of that. He let me get really close to him, as you can see. What's he doing? Huh? What's he doing? It's not fair, is it? My next stop was Snag Junction Campground. This is sort of like a state park. It was dry camping, but they had free firewood there. They had these bear-proof trash cans, which were very sturdy. Bear-proof food containers if you were camping in a tent, and a nice picnic shelter with a stove in it. I had a beautiful site right on the lake. And this was in the afternoon. I got there and took a little walk there. And this butterfly was entertaining. This was in the morning with the mist on the lake and a little bit of a sunrise there. After I left Snag Junction, I started running into some challenging road conditions. First, these frost heaves, which is just this undulating pavement from where it freezes and thaws. It's hard to tell, but it's sort of like a little kid's roller coaster over and over and over again. Pretty tiring. And then there's this construction. Lots of gravel, lots of washboard sections. I was waiting for a pilot car here. But eventually, first big milestone, I made it to Alaska. I'm back in the USA. That was a pretty awesome feeling. Went through customs soon after I was at that sign. And that was really nothing burger to that. Just showed them my passport. And then my first stop inside Alaska was this Denali National Wildlife Refuge, which was one of my favorite stops. I met Debbie and Brian from North Carolina. They're full-time RVers, and they volunteer with the National Parks Service. This is a review of the refuge right here. And I spent a lot of time there with them. They had these trappers' cabins down the hill, which were actually built in the 1950s by this real live trapper, and they're still there, and they are sturdy structures. So back on the road, some more construction, waiting for a pilot car. This was probably a 15-mile drive once we got going. Gave Missy some fresh air to entertain herself during that time. After that, we stopped and just pull off and looked at this Tanana River Bridge, and it was just a neat place to stop. The bridge was pretty impressive. And I stopped for the night in a place called Tok, Alaska, and stayed at this RV village. It was a nice campground, and had a nice site there. It was very clean showers. They had a lot going on there. And then my next milestone was getting to Delta Junction and the end of the Alaska Highway. So yeah, that was a pretty big deal. And that was a neat visitor center. I met a motorcyclist there named Miles from North Carolina who had got from North Carolina up to here in 10 days on his motorcycle. This is a giant mosquito sculpture, which was kind of creepy. And then this was a interesting pipeline. They had these different sizes that showed the pipeline, how it changed in size over time. So the largest one is the size of the pipeline now. The oil pipeline from Alaska, just to be clear. Next stop, North Pole, Alaska, which essentially this is a tourist stop. It's a big store with lots of Christmas stuff. And I did a little shopping there. Only a few miles from the North Pole is Fairbanks. And I stopped at Fort Wainwright and camped at RV park there. And my truck started making some strange noises. And so the next day I found a place to get it checked out, and they took me in right away, checked the brakes, and actually ended up getting an oil change too. This is Missy being such a good girl in the waiting area. They said probably what it was a rock that had got stuck in the rotor. It was making noise, but eventually fell out. Then I went to Walmart, the 4th largest Walmart in the United States. So I was able to stock up before heading south to Denali. I stayed just outside the national park at Denali RV Park that night. And this was an okay park. I just wanted to get close. It was raining. It actually had been raining for about 3 days straight, which was starting to get old. After I left that park, it was only about 8 miles down the road to the national park. And this is the entrance to the national park. And then this is once you're in the park, and you can see that you can't see the mountain because it was raining. And then this is where I stayed at Riley Creek Campground. And I did walk some trails, could not see the mountain. Went to the museum, which was at the visitor center, a very nice museum. And had a lot of nice exhibits there. Got your moose, you got your bear, doll sheep, and then the next one is an eagle, I believe. So it was nice. And then the rangers there were very helpful. With a bus depot. Basically, you really can't drive through the park. You have to take a bus. Lots of signs there with how to deal with wildlife, but I did not see any wildlife while I was there, except for squirrels. Hey friends, this has been quite a week. Highs and lows. I think the lows were some of the driving conditions were very tiring. Felt like it really took a toll on my camper and my truck. And like I said, I made that crazy noise when I was in Fairbanks, and a lot of prayer. Unfortunately, a lot of worry too. I think about, my tendency to worry, which I'm better now than I used to be, but still definitely something I need to work on. And sometimes I wonder, why I have the attitude of sort of catastrophizing things rather than looking at with anticipation about what God can do. The two verses that come to mind, be anxious for nothing, but in everything with prayer and supplication and thanksgiving, let your requests be known to God, and the peace of God, which surpasses understanding, will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. And so I definitely try to apply that, and the trick is to catch the worry before it gets out of control and catch it early. And then the other thing I thought of is in Ephesians chapter 3, I think, talks about now to him is able to do exceedingly abundantly more than we ask or imagine, according to the power that works in us. I want to change my attitude to one of like, okay, I have this issue. We'll just use the truck as an example. What is God going to do he's going to take care of it. How's he going to do it? And he did. I went to the first shop I went to. They couldn't fit me in. But they were very nice. They called a couple places. They couldn't find anybody that could fit me in. And then the lady that was there, one of the other service coordinators, she's like, hey, what about this Mobile One place? And so they called that place, and the guy's like, yeah, we can fit her in. It's only 2 miles away. And then literally I'm on my way there, and the noise stops. And I was like, holy cow, right? Exceedingly abundantly. I went anyway. I'm going to use some wisdom here, and got the brakes checked, and they checked out fine. And then while I was there, I ended up getting an oil change because I've already driven 5,000 miles, and I got another 5,000 to get home. Um, so yeah, that worked out amazing. And then it's been a lot of rain. This is the first sun that I've seen in like 4 days, and the rain has been challenging, especially the camper is small and it starts to feel smaller because of the rain, because you're kind of stuck inside. Although I would say the last 2 days I've just said, you know what, I'm going to go out, and we went hiking in the rain. And then you just have to make a conscious effort of drying the dog off and making sure everything doesn't smell like wet dog. um, but yeah, the milestones, making it to Alaska, finishing the Alaska Highway, making it to Denali, all of these things are part of the goals of this trip. Um, so yeah, that's been this week. A couple corrections. I said I stopped at that wildlife refuge and talked to Brian and Debbie, and I had pictures of those animals that I had shown you last week. I think I identified one as an elk and the other one as I don't know what I said it was, but anyway, the first one was a caribou, and then the second one, the whiter looking animal, was a Dall sheep, an immature male. So they were really helpful. Now I'm sure that Chat GPT could have told me that, but it was a lot more fun talking to Debbie and Brian, and just sharing stories about camping, and they had a lot of really good tips about where to go and stay and that kind of road conditions and that sort of thing. So I'm in Denali now, and I'm leaving tomorrow. I'm going to head back to Fairbanks. I'll stay there tomorrow night, and then I am going to do the Top of the World Highway. I was getting ready to not do it because of the road conditions, but I thought, you know what? I called into my discipleship group this morning, and the ladies were very encouraging, and they said, you know what? God's been looking out for you. You've been smart, and you're not going to probably be back there. Just do it. So I'm going to do it. And when the sun comes out, things, your attitude improves. Well, at least that's what happens for me. So hope everybody's doing well. I hope you're enjoying the video, and I'll see you next week.